Hello.
Good day.
Right, I can't hear what I can usually hear, so please don't tap the table because I won't be able to tell you to stop.
Like this. You don't have to tell me to stop anyway, I don't do it. So do we need to do an introduction?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Rob from RS. And I'm joined today by Mr. Clark.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for keeping me company.
I'm not at all uncomfortable being this side of the camera with everything recording over there as well.
Yeah, it's doing all right, though.
Not so far.
I mean, usually you just stand there anyway.
Looking like a shit DJ.
This will prove it.
Shit.
So we're going to talk today about Lineage. This is something that was kicked up a few weeks ago, wasn't it? And people were talking about it. And it's took us this long to get around to us talking about it.
I think that it's always a conversation that's being had here.
A community buzz.
So yeah, I think that sometimes when conversations are had regularly here, it's difficult to then ramp yourself up to talk about it for people who don't usually appreciate it.
It is hard to remember to talk about things sometimes. And we did learn this, I think, in the early days of YouTube, when we would put a video out where we would discuss a topic, and it was like, okay, we've talked about that. We don't need to talk about it again. Everybody knows now because there it is out in the wild. And yet, 6 months later, some people are commenting, "What about this? What about that?" Oh, but we already did a video about that. Clearly, it's not been seen, so we'll do it again. So yeah, I'm quite down for the repetition, but it's remembering to do it. But
it's also as from usually that point over there, the conversations that get had here and there, everyone's always learning. So this is not just talking about something that you believed 15 years ago. It's something that you believed 15, 20 years ago, and I've had that instilled and cemented in you the more that you've learned.
Yeah, but I think it's the baseline for me and my interest in replica props. The lineage has to be there. So let's talk about what it is.
Okay.
Lineage, let's define it.
What is lineage, Rob?
Well, this is the dictionary definition.
Is it going to be the dictionary definition?
So I was expecting you to put that on screen, but we might. Let me get my phone out.
I can't do that. I'm not over there.
Well, this is I'll read it, the dictionary definition.
I'm impressed you've actually done any research.
I'm Googling it now.
Sprite, if you want to sponsor us. Or Coca-Cola even.
I don't know who makes Volvic, but I'm on the water. Oh, interesting. So this is exactly what I was going to say it was.
It's convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, two words, which explain lineage.
What are those two words, Rob?
Direct descendant.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just a buzzword in it that gets bounded around all the time. But lineage is lineage.
Again,
I think that's English pronunciation.
I don't think so. Lineage sounds definitely more of an American pronunciation.
Don't know.
Aluminium, aluminum.
Because that's the line, isn't it? That we're following. But it's a direct descendant. That is what lineage is.
Okay.
And then...
So I might be hijacking this and jumping forwards in time. Where does lineage become recasting? Or are that two totally different things?
Well, it depends, because you've got your direct descendant. So if you've got a production-made piece, I mean, let's go way back. When I very, very first found replica props, I'd go on the RPF, and you would see stuff, and people would be making anything that you've ever seen in a movie. There's probably somebody on the RPF that has made it or is making it. Anything you want, you know, Hanning Carbonite, full Robocop, or a gun from a movie, or, you know, everything. Big, small, everything in between. It's all there. And it's all different degrees of accuracy. Now, to me, to be accurate, it needs Lineage. Because if you want something exactly the same as you've seen on screen, the only way to do that is to copy what was on screen or to get it out of the mould.
But how then, is that not two different things? Copying something exactly doesn't need lineage to the original piece, or is lineage just come from copying it? Does lineage not come from utilising the original piece? The most obvious thing to talk about is Simon's helmet.
Okay.
So that's the original screen. That is a original screen used helmet.
Yes.
You stripped that down, learnt everything you could about it.
Yeah.
Mould it.
Made moulds.
Made the books, whatever you call them.
And make the replica. And that's the direct lineage to Simon's helmet.
But if somebody had the skill to somehow cast, you know, do it the old school way and copy it as a cast, and it looked exactly the same, because it looks exactly the same.
So sculpt it.
Yeah, sculpt it, sorry.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, if they could, would that have lineage? Because it looks exactly the same.
No.
Okay, but that's what it sounded like you were saying before. It can look like it to have lineage.
No, to look exactly like it, it has to have lineage.
Which means it has to come in at least part from the original piece to give it its main body.
Yeah. Now you're getting in. Then we start deferring into good lineage and bad lineage. But yeah, for me to be, so what I'm looking for, it doesn't matter whether it's a Star Wars thing or it was something from Aliens or Blake 7 or Doctor Who, Space 1999, Robocop, anything that I'm interested in. If I like the piece and I want a copy of it, then for me personally, this is just me, I look for lineage because I know that the size is going to be right, you know, that it's going to be the closest thing that I'm going to be able to get. Because if money's no object, like really no object, you would just buy everything screen used. And the tie helmet that we make, there's one coming up for auction, and I think the estimate's about £400,000. So you've got a choice there. £400,000 or like £400. But you could still pay £400 and have one that's fan sculpt or has not got any lineage. So you take your choice. You know, it's different strokes for different folks.
So then, I don't know if I'm derailing this again, but that goes down the route of, you could also go down the route of a licensed product, which bears almost very little similarities to a screen used one.
It's,
you know, if you look at
a
price,
licensed product with lineage.
Well, is that that would be a misconception for probably me a while ago, and for people now, that if it's licensed, it has lineage. Like, I've seen how much the Black Series X-Wing helmets are going for. Like, second hand, it's quite a lot of money. But they don't, you know, in comparison to an actual Lineage X-Wing helmet where the proportions are right, they're quite different in a lot of areas, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Some would say wildly different.
So there's a lot of choice out there. It depends what you're looking for.
But that's what I'm kind of getting at is Lineage isn't, although it's a very simple definition, it's not a simple explanation, is it, when it comes to, certainly in this environment?
Well, it's a direct descendant, and that is exactly what it is. So, if you're looking at, there are a whole, how can I put this? There are many different variables when you're looking at well, we're in replica props, so let's talk about replica props. When you're looking at a replica prop, there are so many different variables. So the first one, for me, you need Lineage, because that's going to be the closest thing to what we see on screen. And if you want a replica of something, and you want the best replica you can get, then I think you need Lineage. Because if you don't have Lineage and you have a fan-made piece and it looks great, looks absolutely superb, then, and you put it, at some point you get the opportunity to see or to handle an original piece, and you just happen to have your replica with you and you compare it, you're going to see the differences.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to stand out. Oh, look at that. That's a lot fatter. That's a slightly different shape. It's all of those things that Lineage covers. So, you know that all the little weird angles and everything, they're going to be right. So all the stuff that you're going to miss.
That I suppose that leads on to something that I knew I was going to talk about from my personal experience of replica props, and I've got it with me for this reason, is you're talking about making your replica and comparing it to an original and seeing those differences, whereas my journey was buying a licensed helmet in 2007 and then comparing it to a Lineage replica.
So, well, there's so much to deal with, really, that's more than Lineage. So, okay, Lineage is direct descendant. So ideally what you're looking for is a good original example of the piece that you want a replica of. So if somebody's got a specific helmet and it's a good helmet, and then they make the replica, now they've got to make the replica right, because you can start with a really nice Lineage piece. Let's say a Vader helmet, because I think, I'm not a big Vader expert, but I'm pretty sure that there are Lineage Vader helmets out there, and the original guy who's made them has taken a mold off a helmet, or he's got a casting out of a mold, and it's got a load of marks and scars and mess on it, which he doesn't remember being there. When he watched the film, he didn't remember that. So he starts sanding it down and cleans it all up. Looks really nice, but it's now idealized. So it's got Lineage, but it's idealized. Yeah. So then we broke away now. So you've got a direct descendant. Now, you could have one that's just warts and all, it's not been altered. Or you could have one that's been all cleaned up. It's still Lineage, but now we're like, okay, how good is the Lineage? Well, this has been cleaned up. The guy took it, he's sanded it all down. In doing so, that's taken away some of the details that I want. And this you can just extrapolate that, so it can get worse. So you can start with a piece, you can sand it, you can then decide, if I change this, it's going to be easier for me to make. It's going to be less complicated to mold, so I'll just make that little change. And then if I change this, that will mean I can use a different material or something. So it depends how far you want to stretch away from the original piece. But we still got Lineage because it's a descendant. Now you're straying away from that. And is it a direct descendant? I would say no. But it's still a descendant. So it's got the lineage because that's the line from the piece that you've got to where it came from. In this case, the movie or the helmet X or whatever that piece is. So it's easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's possible to to deviate from it. And this is when you start having good lineage and bad lineage. For example, we had the Queen, and then we had King Charles, and then we've got William, who's going to be the next king, and then second in line to the throne is Harry. Now, there's some debate on the lineage there.
Allegedly.
I don't actually. When he was younger, maybe, but I don't see it now. This is how the lineage can be.
So to put that into terms of where lineage is lost when it's a direct descendant is that if someone muddies the water and takes a cast of something that's been idealised,
yeah,
you could argue and say, well, yeah, this has got lineage because it was from this helmet to this helmet to the original helmet.
Yeah.
But instead of being a straight line down, it starts to curve off in like a family tree style of third cousin removed.
So, I mean, that's... I suppose what you're looking for is a direct... I mean, what you want is the original piece. That's what you want. So we want the closest copy to that. Now, the best lineage piece out there may be half a dozen generations away from that. It may have been sanded, it may have been cleaned, but that's still the best lineage piece out there. So it all depends. It all depends what's available for that particular prop as to how strong the lineage is. So if you are 6 generations removed from the original piece, and yet that is the best and only lineage replica available, then that's the best one. In my opinion, that's the best one at this current moment in time. That's only going to be superseded if somebody comes out with, I've got a direct one, or,
So would you rather take, if you had 2 options on the table of a complete fan sculpt, idealised version of helmet A, but you could have a 6th generation lineage helmet, so there's actual lineage back to the original versus an accurate an accurate sculpt, would you choose the 6th generation, which is probably going to look a bit more shabby and worse wear because it does have a direct connection no matter how diluted it is?
I probably am, because I know that the sculpt is never going to be quite right. So no matter what anyone says to me, you cannot recreate a sculpt exactly and match all the angles. And I know people will be commenting saying bullshit. And they'll be saying, what about people who sculpt somebody's face? And it's like, yeah, it looks like them, but you put it right next to them, and it probably doesn't look as like them as you think. Your brain's making you think, oh yeah, that's who that is, because they're recognising it and you're picking out key points. But it doesn't mean it's going to be exactly the same. And I just want it to be as close as the movie piece. And if it's a bit shoddy, I don't mind, because that's a story.
Yeah, that's definitely there's going to be a lot of people who watch this who go, yeah, that was my journey as well, to go down that route of realising what idealised is.
The lineage thing is not for everyone, that's fine. If you're not interested in that, then that's fine, that's cool. For me, that's what I wanted. When I started all this, lineage stuff was a lot more difficult to get hold of, and fan sculpts were the only options that you had. And again, I mean, everybody wanted them still because that was the best that was on offer.
What was the Stormtrooper armour everyone used to wear?
The FX stuff.
Was that the FX stuff? And that was like almost global, wasn't it? That's what all Stormtroopers look like.
Yeah.
Because we were talking to Sam Clark was saying, wasn't he, that he actually bought one 20 years ago, didn't he? And brought him from the States.
Yeah.
And he built that one himself. And then obviously 20 odd years later, he's buying an RS one. No matter I'm not saying that it took him 20 years to do that journey, but it's a 20-year story in relation to it. I remember looking at the ones on Etsy, thinking I'd rather spend £300 on a kit and mess it up than risk it on a Lineage one. But then you start to see them next to each other and you go, well done.
We're differentiating from the Lineage thing, but I think the replica props thing in general is...
But is that, so you're saying with differentiating from Lineage, is that not part of it though, to say, well, originally when you're looking at something, you go, well, that's a Stormtrooper, so I'm going to want it. And then you actually see something that has Lineage and go, hold on, they actually don't look alike.
Well, no, I think the issue is when you find the replica prop community, you look at it and some things can seem very expensive. And when there's a cheaper option, you may be tempted with that. And until you've just jumped into the rabbit hole, you can just perch around the outside edge of it and you can look at cheaper options, which nowadays may be Black Series helmet, which is fine. And you may just stay on that safe area, which is not going to break the bank, which is fine. I tried that when I first got into replica props and with creating a Boba Fett costume for myself. And I probably didn't even get halfway into building the costume. And I was like, I got rid of everything and just started. I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to pay hundreds of dollars for a belt because the one I've got ain't cutting it for me. No. And that, so you can be part of the community and not fully submerge yourself. But unfortunately, I couldn't. But
I think this links to a conversation with Steve DeRose when we talked about his collector's journey. Like, you get to a point almost where you outprice yourself for what you can own in a collection. And I suppose it's the same thing. You're talking about some people. It sounds funny you're saying it's fine, the Black Series stuff, because the last time you and I had a conversation like this, it's still our most hated video we've ever done.
I hate it.
No, but it's
I hate it.
I agree, and I agree.
It's not for me. I don't hate its existence. I just don't particularly want it myself.
Yeah.
But I mean, I bought Black Series helmet a few weeks ago at that convention, the Star Wars Fan Fun Day, for Harry.
Yeah.
Because it's actually a pretty good representation of the clone helmet. He's a big clone fan. He's 13 years old, so I don't really think having a good replica helmet is going to benefit him in any way. He's probably not going to look after it properly. So, but he's got something now, and he's interested. He's got an interest in props and the costumes and all of that, probably from coming here and seeing what I'm doing. But he's into that, so I'm happy to encourage that. And the Black Series helmet is perfect. It's absolutely perfect for that. I wouldn't want it in my collection, but I stupidly dove into the rabbit hole, and I'm swimming around in the complete lunacy of it all. But it makes me happy.
But so Paul was talking to there's a guy called Peter with the Tash at Star Wars.
Oh, yeah,
and then they
yeah.
were talking about, and Paul was talking about it, and I'll grab it because I brought mine with me.
The well-dressed gent.
This is my first helmet.
Look at it.
And came in a box, lovely presentation box, and the first thing I did was rip it out the box.
My first helmet, like Fisher Price.
Yeah, and Paul was saying he had one of these.
Now, you see, the Black Series is more accessible than these. Is that right? How were these expensive?
I want to say it was about 250, 300 quid, and this was, it's got the date inside, the year inside, 2007, and I'm sure it was like 250, 300. I might be totally wrong, but that's where my memory sits with it. I've always kept that from when I went down the rabbit hole of screen accuracy, which I think the first time I met you guys was probably going on 8 or 9 years ago now. And that lived in the loft for a long time. Now my man cave is full of one-to-one screen accurate stuff. I've kept that and it's back on display because I like that. that point A to point B. And Paul said he regrets selling his now because he wishes he has that comparison, because he just looked at it one day and went, I don't like it, and got rid of it. Whereas I remember holding one of your helmets to begin with after having that in my collection for years and thinking, why is this so flimsy? Why is all this wrong or not? You know, there's no structure to it. There's no support. You know, the brow moves, everything that makes it interesting.
He's an ugly looking duck, isn't he?
But then again, lack of knowledge. When I first got this, I was like, why has it got green lenses? Because obviously in the film, it's very hard to tell. Certainly going back to VHS days, it's very hard to tell it had green lenses. So even that to me wasn't as good as it should be, because I just had no understanding of what it was actually meant to be like.
I'm struggling. I'm struggling to work out what it is.
So is it
what it's based on?
Is it based on? Is it a scan where they've just flipped one side so it's then mirrored, so it's symmetrical instead of asymmetrical?
I wouldn't even like to say. I mean, these ears look much more kind of Return the Jedi style.
I'd like to say, just to before we do get hate in the comments about this, I do still love it, but for different reasons. I don't love it as a piece. I don't love the way it looks. I don't love anything about it, that element of it. But for me, it is the beginning of that journey. I mean, you could argue that goes back to being a kid, or when I went to university with a Stormtrooper cutout and a Star Wars duvet. I don't know why the ladies weren't throwing themselves at me, but they weren't. So, you know, the journey kind of never stopped on these pieces, but that was the one thing that's always stuck with me for the last 2007, 16 years now since I got it, because that was the start of, I want more display pieces, and then that's when you go down when you find out about the Lineage side of things. So
I don't know what Lineage, if any, this has got, but I mean, it could have some. But this is clearly a lot further removed than
this has
than
Lineage.
It even needs to be.
So if this was, I'm just realised how much dust's on it from being sat for literally a decade. We would say it's bad Lineage. Is that how you'd refer to it, if there is any at all?
Well, I mean, if there was Lineage to it, I think they've managed to disguise it that well.
So then, just to throw a spanner in the works. And this was in perfect condition till I dropped it getting out the van. But
it's an antique.
We need to clarify as well, talking about, because people might be just listening to this and not watching it. The first helmet we've just been talking about is the Master Replicas.
Yes.
Stormtrooper from 2007.
Master Replicas 2007. Stormtrooper helmet, not sure what sort.
And the next one I've just produced is a Ruby's helmet, which I was really surprised at, because I only looked at this before. Was made in 2008. So a year later, and yet looks decades older, as in the process, the quality and everything about
70s,
it.
doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I say I just dropped it, getting out of the van and cracked it. This has been hanging on a helmet stand for...
But you can see why this one's much more quality, because it's very sturdy, whereas this is a very flimsy, vac-formed piece.
Well, it's the fact that it's two pieces held together by 1, 2, 3, I think 5 or 6 Velcro tabs. But this is, you know, the licensed product and Lineage and where that's important. It couldn't be any more a matter of taste. This isn't allowed for babies 0 to 3 years old, just in case anyone was wondering.
So yeah, they're two handsome chaps that you've brought with you.
But look how wide. I mean, it's difficult if anyone is actually just listening to this, but how wildly different they are, considering they are both Lucasfilm licensed Stormtrooper helmets. I don't know what the price point of this would have been new. The Ruby, is it a Ruby's one?
Probably.
Don't know. I don't actually say. It just says Lucasfilm inside. But I don't know, what would that be marketed as, a Halloween costume with a morph suit or something like that?
Yeah. Whereas this is the prop collectible.
Yeah. For some people.
So, are we answering the question on Lineage?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I've derailed it too much. I think, like, for me, the journey is, it showed me how much more important Lineage is to me. And, kind of finding you guys, and regardless of the way I've ended up doing what I do with it, it's that the best way you describe it, and I've heard you say it loads of times, and it never makes me, I don't ever disagree with it, is when you call it a rabbit hole. Like, that applies to so many things in people's lives. I clearly went down a rabbit hole of barbecuing as well, as an example, that you can have one barbecue or you can have 10 and justify it. This is very similar, that where, you've got the next step would be to try and get, I suppose the next step is found part replicas, isn't it? Which Steve touched on his lightsaber. So you've got that element, and then you've got...
Now, the found parts and Lineage question, it's not direct lineage to production made piece as in a copy of it, but it is the actual piece. So for me, that's just as good, because I'm not, from what we do, we want the original pieces, the original shapes, the fact that it's production made is something that we have to do for things that we can't get that are found parts.
Yeah.
But if we can get a found part of that thing, then that's, from my point of view, with making a replica, then that's just as good.
And that's, I suppose that a prime example at the moment of that would be the Bausch helmet, with why we talked about this early on, but one of the reasons why this wasn't done 6 months ago or more was because there was always something else on the horizon.
All the bits and pieces.
If that could be a fan part and then a cast of a fan part, rather than a fan-made cast of a fan-made piece. So the Bausch is obviously an extreme example, isn't it, with being one of the most complicated helmets that they produce, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there, and we're still using photographs and things to replicate that, but that's because the photographs of where the panels are cut, that kind of stuff, because we haven't got access to the piece. So it's the closest thing. You can either buy the original piece or not, as the case may be. In this case, it's priceless and it's not going to be for sale. Or we can make that piece, which is the closest thing to it. And you put them next to each other and it would look good. There's still going to be small details that are not, from the way it's handmade. There's just going to be bits that you'll notice. But there's nothing closer, and that's the thing. That's the key to it. So the Lineage for me is to be as close to the original piece, and then we have the expression "screen accurate," and
that was literally going to be the next thing I said.
For me, you need the Lineage, and you need the way it's made, the way it's put together, the materials. You need that to be as close as you possibly can. So, do we want to make compromises? No. Do we have to make compromises sometimes? Yes. So there's thinking and reasons for that.
But use your TK as an example of that as well, that if someone gets that kit and builds it themselves, as someone who, I claim I built mine and Pete took a lot of it apart and redid it, but there were certain parts I did which were good enough for it to be a cleared suit. But when I went down the route of, what was it before, Centurion on the fist? Whatever, there's a couple of stages, isn't there?
Fizzed with a D.
Fizzed with a D. Fisted.
Not fist.
But there was a point where...
Fizzed is the first Imperial Stormtrooper detachment.
Yeah, so...
Which is a Stormtrooper detachment for the 501st, if anyone's listening who's...
So you can build a kit, you submit your clearance pictures, and the UKG, for example, with me went, yeah, that's more than good enough to be cleared. Now then with FISD, they will scrutinise it more, and they've got a top level of clearance, which is Centurion, because that's the highest screen accuracy. Am I explaining this correctly? And that's to the point that I remember them saying to me, your rivets on your kidney plate they don't line up, or I can't remember exactly what the problem was, but I had to get a new kidney plate off you guys to redo it because I wanted that level of screen accuracy. For me, and again, this is a matter of taste and the way I went, I wouldn't see the point in doing that with armour that didn't have Lineage. I wouldn't see the point in trying to replicate it as closely as possible with the rivets in the right places and all these different things that matter if there wasn't a Lineage to it in the first place. If it's just a nice collection piece and a display piece, great. You can just have it like that. But if you're going for that level of accuracy, then why would you do that with something that wasn't?
Different strokes, different folk.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I know what you're saying. I totally agree with you. Other people may disagree. It all depends on where you want to spend your time in life. You've got a pretty small amount of time to spend on this planet. It's what you want to spend it doing. And I'm with you. I'd rather, if I'm building it myself, then I'd rather get it as close in every way, not just in one way or two ways or three, every way possible. And that's when your compromise comes in. I can't quite get that. This one bullet point that I wanted to get as close as I can. Can't get it quite as close as I can. We'll dial it back a notch or two. That's the best it's going to be. That's what I'm going to have to go with. That's it. So I think, and also with the licensing for me, let's just get that one out of the way. Because I did hear quite a few comments about, a license gives you access to the archive and access to, all this stuff that nobody else can get. And it's not actually true. So if you look at EFX, the Hero Stormtrooper, I know it never came out, but the whole suit was nothing to do with the archive. That was in a private collection. The EFX blaster that they've just done was bought at auction. So the license doesn't guarantee you access to anything in the archive. When Lucasfilm was sold to Disney, George retained the archive. George owns the archive. Lucasfilm doesn't even own the archive. So it doesn't give you that exclusive access that you may think. What the license used to do and still does is, if you go back 10, 15 years, there were collectors that would only buy licensed stuff. And there were other guys, and we're going to call them garage kits. And that's because they were guys who were literally working in their garage, creating a fan-made piece and selling it. Now, what the license did was guaranteed that when you put your money down, you were going to receive that piece. Whereas the garage kit guys, some real life things may get in the way. Rob's
doing air quotes for people who are listening.
That was always the thing that you would see. I've been ripped off by this guy, and then eventually he'd reply, "Real life got in the way because X, Y, and Z." But that was kind of the difference. There was garage kits and there was licensed, and you bought your garage kit and it was up in the air whether you were going to get it, when you were going to get it. You bought your licensing and you would receive that relatively quickly, and you would receive it. And they were the two different areas of the prop community. That's what the license was all about. And it was obviously endorsed by Lucasfilm, and the other guys were in fear of being stopped at any time. And that was it. And then over the years, I think that's blurred. a little.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That blaring comes from you guys. Obviously changed that 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was. Now when you became.
Well, I think there's a lot of people.
What I mean is
the game.
Yeah, but when you set out, when you did that first run of helmets, and we've had loads of comments about this whenever we've talked about it, and people said like you put things right that were wrong, like that first run of was it Starion, whatever it was.
Yeah,
you were fixing those mistakes, whereas people were saying that so many people have been burnt on the forums before by people going, well, that was that problem, it's been dealt with, and then the lines blurred the other way when Anavos started to not deliver on their orders. Even the effects for years with that Scout that's just been released, but Anavos in particular left a lot of bitterness with people.
Well, I think the new Anavos, I think they're picking up and fulfilling that.
What's it called? Anavos Duo.
Anavos 2? I'm not sure. Duo Duo. I don't know. I couldn't pronounce Anavos for a long time. Is it Anavos or is it Anovos? I don't know.
Just go back again on something that we talk about, garage kits. So something I've hovered around the tip of the rabbit hole, that's the wrong way to put it, is, and you know about this, is Daft Punk helmets. Like I've been a Daft Punk fan. I've been a Daft Punk fan for as long as I have, since they've been about fucking hell, Clocky. I'm cutting that bit out. I've been a Daft Punk fan, since, what was it, the early 90s when they became, big. And I've always loved the idea of the helmets and never really thought it was a thing until I got into this kind of collection. Then you realise that there are these forums, and I'm part of a few forums, and there's a couple of people who are very reputable makers. But when you order from them, it's like it ships in 6 weeks to 6 months. And it's because it's not what they do. So real life gets in the way. And like a full finished helmet, you're looking at $2,500 grand. So you've got to pay it up front. And that to me, knowing the stories I've heard from the like, people say the RPF days, but that's not necessarily the negativity of the RPF. That's just the people that were building, 15 plus years ago. But knowing those stories, it does put me off pulling the trigger on spending even half that just for the kit, which isn't finished. You still got to pay it up front and take that risk. So if anyone's got any Daft Punk helmets, then let me know. It's finished.
So yeah, it's.
But I think the way we're talking about it now, and I'm very wary about us sounding like we're just moaning about other people when we're not. We're trying to have a genuine conversation about lineage and license. But this is not a unique situation to Star Wars, is it? There's Doctor Who, there's Star Trek, where people are after replicas or lineage or found parts, and say Daft Punk, there's no actual found. I'm tapping the table. Oh, all that noise is down to me. I'm sorry. It's because I'm not wearing headphones to tell myself off. I imagine it's in every community where people are making replicas across the infinite space of film, TV, or pop culture. Yeah, there's always someone doing something. So, I mean, I don't know what, using that Punk example, I don't know what actual lineage there is, or whether these are, people have ever just stood next to their actual helmet and gone, yeah, mine looks as close to that as possible. And if I got one and put it on display, I'm probably going to go, that looks fucking awesome. And then the day comes that you see it next to a real one, you go, it's absolute shite. But that's the journey it took with this kind of stuff.
That's the thing. And so, a lot of the time that puts me off, actually. Like you said, actually ordering something because I don't know enough about that subject. And you see something, you're like, oh, that's really good. Like, that's a great looking Jason hockey mask. And, do I buy it, or I don't know much. I don't know about the maker. I don't know the background of them. I don't know if they've copied it off somebody else. I don't know if they've copied it off an original one. I don't know enough about it to satisfy myself to order it, so I just won't order it.
And I suppose something that we've had, is it first or second hand dealings with, is like the area of places like Etsy, which allow people to make things without having any presence anywhere other than that store. They've got a lot of anonymity that, you don't know who they are, what they've recast, what they've made from scratch, how many times they've existed as a different maker before that. And there's all those questions, like say they're looking, I'm going to keep touching on Daft Punk stuff, but there's one name that always comes up and has done for the years I've been looking at it. See, the longer this goes on, I think, well, he must be reliable if he's still going under the same name after several years. But it's still, we had someone contact us a while ago, didn't they, saying they bought copy of the RS armor off Etsy and were told that we'd helped them build it. But they had no point of reference of who those people were, and we couldn't find the seller. So they've done it and they've gone.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's part of the community. There's a shady element of the community. We always wanted to stay away from that, and because we had the absolute luxury of having Simon's suit and just sticking it on a table and laying everything out and saying, "There it is. That's it. This is what our replica is made from." There it is. You know, it was. We could be on our high horse, really.
And you've said that
that was a starting point.
You said at one point as well, you were never rushed because you had that in front of you all the time. As much as you wanted to get it done and out there, whenever it wasn't right, you'd go back and look at the original. Whereas, I don't know if you said personal experience, so, you know, people who've had time with an original piece, but it's been limited. So what they've learned and documented is then you've gone away and redone it through, I suppose, photographs or memory in some respects.
It helps being hands-on and not being under any restraints or needing to return something or making a mold of something that you shouldn't really be making a mold of it, or, you know, however that all works. I mean, I understand that people do what they got to do to get the pieces and get the pieces out there. Some things are born into the replicas community that are a lot, a lot more shady than maybe they could be. I think the Fet helmet's one of those things. That ESB Fet helmet, you know, it didn't get a nice launch into the community, but it made its way to the community one way or another, and now it's here.
Yeah, I suppose that proves that what people want, they want. Mm-hmm. Like, and that goes down to someone who doesn't care about Lineage, to someone who'll do anything to get the Lineage out there.
There's loads of stories attached to how this came to be. Not that particular helmet. I mean, how any, you know, whatever the mystery item is, how this came to exist, and it's because it was here and it did this and somebody did that, and it's like, okay.
Well, there's a lot of stories involving when originals.
I'd much have the Lineage nice and clean and explainable.
But I suppose that it crosses there, because I'm going to say there's a lot of Lineage that goes back to the days of the Don Post helmets being cast, where originals were sent to Don Post before they locked the archives down, and those originals just went missing.
Well, they're a great example because they are production made pieces. But I'm sure they were made to supply to Don Post, so there's no question of them being screen used or. They were specifically made for Don Post. Now, to us, that's good because there are collectors out there, a lot of collectors with huge money that will snap up original props, and that removes them from the likes of us. But a production-made piece that's come from the same moulds, now that's exactly what we're looking for. And the Don Post helmets offer that. Not all the pieces, because they didn't use an A&H faceplate, for example, for the tie, because it was easier for them to recreate the Jedi one because they still got the mold for that. But we can pick the bits that we need.
I never put 2 and 2 together. That's why one of the reasons that helmet looks so weird. There was one of them as well.
There was supplies to Jedi. A Jedi helmet faceplate in the production made. All the rest of it was correct. It was just the faceplate.
There's the thumbnail.
See, it says it all to me. You know, that's what I'm looking for, and not just in this. That's my interest. I mean, if I won the lottery, or if if so, like a billionaire out there who watches the channel, who really likes us, wants to leave.
I thought you were pitching for a sugar daddy then.
Huge amount of money in his will. I would be out trying to buy original props because I know they're right. And that's not practical. So now we're looking at other ways to own the closest thing we can to that original prop. Hence the Scout, everything that we try and do. And Lineage is, I'm going to bring it back to Lineage. Lineage is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And like I say, I don't think you can have screen accurate without the Lineage. A lot of this just gets tossed into the mix. And I think that's because there is, rather than saying screen accurate, really they should be saying a good representation, or a good helmet compared to a lot. But people don't want to be saying compared to a lot of other shit that's out there. They don't want to. They just want to talk about their stuff, and I appreciate that. But there is, there's some bad stuff out there.
Yeah.
Which is fan made, and it's fan made bad, fan made, and there's fan made good, and there's Lineage bad, and there's Lineage good. There's a lot of nuance to the whole thing. It's not as cut and dry as saying this is Lineage, so it's right. This
is licensed, so it's good. It doesn't work.
Well,
like that, does it?
The license is neither here nor there.
No, but what I mean is like people's association with
license. You can buy shit license and you can buy good license.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That it doesn't mean if something's got Lineage and it's not done well, it doesn't mean it's good.
No.
And if something's licensed,
no,
it doesn't mean it's good. It comes from the time that
it's researching it. It's putting in a little bit of time and effort to do your research and to kind of validate the claims that people are attaching to things. But I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a conspiracy theory. However,
a conspiracy theory,
conspiracy theorist.
Conspiracy. I don't even know what it actually is. I'm not into conspiracy theories.
Well, I do like to question things. If someone tells me a fact, I like to question it. That's it. And that goes with everything in life, really. It's hard to take things at face value, I find.
Question the man.
Always.
I think as I always find this conversation interesting in whatever little tidbits we talk about it. But there'll be people who are sitting here listening to this or watching it saying it's a pointless conversation when you agree. So maybe we should be putting this out there to say anyone who doesn't agree with us about Lineage and accuracy, let us know. We'll try and get you in for a podcast.
Well, I think most of the people watching and listening to this are going to be in the same rabbit hole that we're in.
Yes, but I keep coming back to this lately, that FET video that we did 4+ years ago, which we still get regular shit on about before we get comments. Someone made a comment lately that I went back and watched the whole thing from start to finish, and I still believe all the negativity is based around people who didn't listen to us, but didn't understand what we were saying.
I think it's people who love that helmet.
Yeah, but
they're on the rabbit's hole's rim of the hole. They're not in the hole. They're on the rimming the rabbit.
Yeah, the rimming the rabbit.
Yeah, and they've not dived in there, and that's fine. That's fine. But I mean, we did kind of set that video up to be a bit like that.
But I still, all this time on, I don't disagree with what we said in it, and all that was, if you haven't watched it, watch it. But it's like 35 minutes of your life. It's not as well produced as this is going to be, with the tapping. But the one thing that stuck with me about that video was I genuinely didn't know the price of those helmets before we shot that. You told me them while we were filming, and I was shocked. And even by standards of cost of living in the world being crazy it is now, for them to cost as much. All right, put the Black Hughes to one side. And look at the.
We talked about the EFX helmet, didn't we?
Yeah.
The EFX PCR Boba Fett helmet. Is that what it was called?
Something like that, yeah.
Which is a Lineage helmet, but it's that far removed from the Lineage. It's too far for me.
But that again, where the cost of it,
it's a nice helmet though.
Well, I still don't think it is, but I also think the cost of it. You know, it wasn't like you even said at the time. You could get, there were some makers out there with better casts. This was before the Lineage cast was in existence.
How much is it nowadays?
Well, it was 500 quid, 550 quid at the time, wasn't it? So it's probably worth more now.
I think you can still buy it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's probably gone up in value if you look at what's happened to some of the Black Series helmets and stuff.
I think you can still buy it new.
Oh, okay.
EFX.
All right, okay.
I think it might be like 600 quid or something. It is what it is. For what it is, I'm not going to fault it. The Black Series helmet is bad.
No, but I still would fault them based on just I just don't think they were worth the money compared to what you could at the time of doing that video, what you could get. But my point is with it that element of Lineage, licensing, and accuracy. It's like that Venn diagram that you sent me the other week. It's very rare that you're going to get all three things to align. Because people want something cheap, you can't have it necessarily as accurate. You want it quick, it can't be cheap. You know, that kind of mentality really does apply to this. Again, the Bausch helmet would be a prime example of that.
Well,
you've said
the thing is, anything's possible. EFX have decided on that particular helmet, this is the route we're going to take. These are the compromises we're going to make because that makes sense for what we're going to do.
Absolutely.
And
I understand the elements of compromise with it, certainly with the licensed product and the restrictions that they're under.
But they don't need to be under any. They're self-imposed.
Yeah, because they've said they want to produce something for X amount with X amount of profit margin.
Yeah, because they see the market and and because it is about making profit. Because they probably know what they're doing.
Yeah. That laugh might have sounded like EFX don't know what they're doing. Reading between the lines, that was a dig at Rob and Cy.
Yeah.
Being fanboys who don't know how to run a business.
Yeah, for sure. We're still here though, so that's the main thing. But yeah, I mean, they're a lot more calculated, and they've probably got a lot more. You know, all the things that are probably good for their business side are all the things that are bad for the product, maybe.
Yeah.
And we're kind of product first, and we cry about it when it all goes tits up, and it's costing us more to make than it's, you know. But it's Blue Monday, and we're Factory Records.
Yeah. If you don't know what that means, go and Google it. It's a good reference.
So, yeah, Lineage. Has it made it any clearer?
For me, no.
Direct descendant.
Yeah, I definitely, it's a little bit clearer for me.
You know,
from what I knew already.
So you've got a choice, William or Harry.
Yeah. That's difficult though, isn't it? Because the non-direct descendant possibly there would be a lot more fun to be around by the look of it. And you could be friends with Oprah. She gives cars away and shit.
I don't know where I'm going to go with that. There's no... If the microphones were off, then I'd have somewhere to go with it. Not on camera. You're not catching me out that easy. Yeah, so that's the Lineage thing. So it's all... I was listening to other people's conversations a couple of weeks ago. So Rogue 16 talked about Lineage, and Spice Runners talked about Lineage. And I watched both of them, and I listened to what was being said, and I thought, yeah, but you miss this point, and I'm sure we can explain it better. I don't think we've done a better job in any way, shape or form than both of those groups, because it's a difficult one. It's very nuanced, and I think at the end of the day, it's down to your own research and your own feelings about whether that's the piece. I mean, I don't know what I was going to say. You might choose a Lineage one for this piece and a non-Lineage one for that one, but I mean, I wouldn't, because I'd go Lineage. But that's because I'm a complete idiot. It's also the connection to the movie. and that's important.
Yeah.
It doesn't even need to be Star Wars. It's whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just the closer you are to that original piece, for me, is what it's about.
Yeah, because I can think, I mean, off the top of my head, a handful of things I would have loved an accurate hoverboard from Back to the Future too, because I just remember that film so vividly as a kid. Stuff like Ray-Ban Wayfarers, like I love the Blues Brothers. Like those sunglasses remind me of that film and remind me of being a kid and watching that film. So that connection to the movie, that I suppose it is an emotional connection, isn't it? That's ultimately the most important thing. It's how far do you want to take that connection? Because I remember you had a Back to the Future skateboard in the studio, didn't you, in the old studio? And I always remember thinking, it doesn't look exciting enough for me. Like it just felt a bit like a toy. And that might have been what the one on set was like. I wouldn't know.
That was a gift from someone.
Did they not like you? Did they not like you? But that's no different than someone coming round and seeing that Master Replica's helmet and loving it versus someone else going, it's not very accurate, it's shit. And I'm going, but it reminds me of being a stormtrooper. I wanted to be a stormtrooper as a kid. It's that emotional connection, isn't it? And that, like you're saying, to any movie. Or like you've got the colonial, I don't know if you've still got it all, but you had the colonial marine bust, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And that was awesome. You had like the replica of the weapon was quality as well, wasn't it? It was like that heavy piece. And
I think it was a bit of a placeholder because I needed to do more research to find a more accurate version.
But from the point of view,
Lineage.
With the what? With Lineage, yeah. But again, from a someone who's never done any research past what I've seen on screen, you look at that and you go, that's Alien, that's in front of me. And
yeah, you get that feeling. And I don't think I've still got it, and it's not on display now, but it was always kind of a placeholder that it presented itself, and I thought the price was fair, and I thought I'll get it, and that was a piece. That is a piece that's needs to be changed at some point for something more accurate.
With Lineage.
Yeah, whether it will or not, I don't know. Because getting old now.
So, I was going to say to wrap it up, but whether this is start a conversation again, I think some people will just presume Lineage is expensive, and I think that from comments we've had in the past, like people will watch a fraction of this video and think this is just two idiots who have it. You know, I go back to, I bought my first.
I think I would expect to pay a bit more for Lineage.
Yeah, but what I mean is, like the elements of something being too expensive or unaffordable. Is that a word? Like I remember selling just tons of stuff I had lying around, and then one day I was like, I've got enough money to buy this thing that I want now. It wasn't like, it took food out the family's mouth or couldn't pay the car payment that month or something like that. It was doable with a plan that I had in it, and I went down that route, and that was the rim in the rabbit's hole for the first time.
Yeah, but it's all about your collection and what you want. I think I was so hooked on Lineage because we couldn't get it. It wasn't even an option. There was no A&H replica Stormtrooper being made. It didn't exist. Not with Lineage. And that's what I wanted.
But that's the nice thing about when we spoke to those guys at Star Wars Fan Fun Day last week, and when they were talking about like how it's things from their childhood. I think again it was that Peter Gent. He talked about appreciating what goes into the product and where he sees value in it, and that was a really interesting thing for me to hear from someone who wasn't not part of the studio, but part of like the people I know. Because it was a normal bloke who's now a collector, and he's got what sounds like a handful of things that he sees complete value in.
He was reaffirming your beliefs.
I don't know if I'd say he's reaffirming my beliefs. I just think it's easy for me to say I'd never become desensitized to being surrounded by this stuff after 5 years of being in the studio regularly and nearly 10 years of being a customer. I still love seeing things. And the Bausch helmet, I've said to you, I wasn't that impressed when I saw the books of it because I didn't appreciate the plaster production molds when I say books. But then the journey of it got me fascinated by that helmet, and then all the greeblies and everything like that. It kind of never, it doesn't get old with me. But then you do kind of, I think you do become desensitized to how much work does go into other parts of the project. And then when people think, oh, it's just expensive, and they're only putting a price tag on it because it's Lineage, it's because of everything that goes on behind the scenes and the months and months and months that went into Bausch's. I keep using that as an example, but before it became public knowledge, you know, those books are what, you got them a year, maybe more ago?
More, because they were pre-fire, weren't they?
Yeah. So, but then there's other things that are here.
They could have been potentially completely lost.
Yeah. But then there's other things that are here that aren't happening because they're not writing, because the research isn't there, and all of that stuff matters for Lineage and for accuracy, which ultimately is why, for me, it's important. And that's why sometimes you might look at something and go, it's expensive, but there's a reason for that. And there's a reason that a mass-produced helmet costs 100 quid, 150 quid.
Exactly. You've answered the question there. That's why the EFX PCR helmet exists. Because they keep the cost down.
Why is it called PCR?
Precision cast
Replica.
Yeah, I think that's what it means. I think it's injection molding or something.
I don't know. Maybe that's a good place to finish it then, if I've answered why that helmet existed, why that helmet exists in my headspace when I didn't understand it.
That is what this whole video has actually been about. Yeah.
Okay.
It was nice talking to you.
It was lovely.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for asking me to come by.
We should do it more often. Do we need to just wrap it up then and say thanks for listening and watching?
Yeah.
And we'll see you on the next one, whenever that may happen.
Yeah, we've got one of the next podcasts coming up. If you want to tease to it, is we're going to I've forgotten his surname. The artist David Kennedy, who we met the other week. Yeah. He's going to come in and have a chat to us about his love of Star Wars art and your love of graphic art.
And also we've got Dan Dynamic Menace. So you need to work.
I knew that was going to get put on me then.
You need to work out how we're going to get the Max Headroom TV set up.
Yeah. Rob wants me to have a TV here instead of somebody with the Zoom call being projected onto the head.
Yeah. So we need to work that out, and then we can speak to Dan.
We green screen it.
Dave's going to be very interesting, and hopefully he's going to give us some tips on kidnap and murder.
Yeah, he was very heavily obsessed with kidnap and murder, wasn't he?
But yeah, it's going to be good talking to Dan. I think that one will be. I think they'll both be interesting. Well, and we've got more. We can't talk about them, but we've got more in the pipeline. Just got content coming out of every orifice available.
And rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah. On that rabbit hole note, we will say good evening.
Don't forget to get in touch with me if you know someone who's got a Daft Punk helmet for sale.
So that's it. Until next time, remember me and your will.
I don't have anything witty to say, so keep on keeping on.